What would you do if your own parents sued you for the house you bought with 13 years of blood, sweat, and tears? Imagine working two jobs since you were 15, never asking anyone for help, finally achieving your dream of homeownership at 28, only to have your parents drag you to court demanding that house for your spoiled sister. That's exactly what happened to me last month. And the judge's response left everyone in that courtroom absolutely speechless. I'm Tonia Sinclair, and this is the story of how I discovered that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most will betray you for money, and how the justice system actually came through when I needed it most. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Growing up in the Sinclair household meant understanding your place early. I learned mine at 12 years old, standing in our living room holding my report card with straight A's, watching my mother barely glance at it before turning back to help Vanessa with her C- homework. "That's nice, dear," she'd said, not even looking up. Meanwhile, when Vanessa managed a B in anything, Dad would take the whole family out to celebrate. The disparity wasn't subtle, it was a neon sign flashing, "You don't matter as much." The birthday comparisons hurt the most. For Vanessa's 13th birthday, she got a brand new laptop, a shopping spree, and a party with 50 guests. For mine that same year, a card with $20 and a lecture from Dad about not expecting handouts in life. "You're the older one, Tanya. You need to learn responsibility." While Vanessa got a laptop for her 13th birthday, I got a lecture about not expecting handouts. I remember sitting in my room that night, staring at that $20 bill and making a promise to myself. If they wouldn't give me what Vanessa got, I'd earn it myself. Every penny, every opportunity, every single thing I wanted in life, I'd get it without their help. The invisible daughter. That's what I called myself in my diary. Present, but not seen, contributing, but not valued. While Vanessa's walls were covered with family photos from vacations I wasn't invited on, mine held a calendar where I marked every day I worked, every dollar I saved. They never asked about my dreams or my struggles, but that invisibility, painful as it was, taught me something valuable: how to be completely self-reliant. I just didn't know then how much I'd need that skill. My alarm went off at 5 a.m. every day, just like it had for the past 13 years. By 5:30, I was already at the coffee shop, prepping for the morning rush. 8 hours there, a quick change in the bathroom, then 6 more hours at the accounting firm doing data entry. 14-hour days were my normal. The studio apartment I rented was tiny, 400 square feet in the roughest part of town. The faucet dripped, the heater worked when it felt like it, and my neighbors' arguments came through the walls like a nightly podcast I never subscribed to. But it was mine, paid for with my own money. Every dollar saved was a brick in my future home. That's what I wrote in my journal every Sunday when I tallied my savings. While my coworkers went out for drinks, I ate ramen. While they upgraded their phones, I kept my cracked screen going with tape. Every sacrifice had a purpose. The dream was simple but specific. A 2-bedroom house with a yard, somewhere quiet where I could finally breathe. I had Pinterest boards full of modest homes, nothing fancy, just mine. A place where no one could tell me I didn't belong or that I was taking up too much space. By 28, I'd saved $67,000. It took skipping meals, working holidays, missing friends' weddings, and wearing the same 5 outfits on rotation for 3 years. My coworkers thought I was crazy. "Why not just ask your parents for help with a down payment?" they'd say. I'd just smile and change the subject. They didn't understand. Every dollar in that savings account was proof that I existed, that I mattered, that I could build something from nothing. I was so close to my goal I could taste it. My father, Robert Sinclair, was the kind of man who believed his word was law, especially in his own home. At 55, he still commanded every room with his booming voice and his favorite phrase, "Family is everything, Tanya, everything." Of course, his definition of family seemed to have subcategories I never quite qualified for. My mother, Margaret, was his eternal echo. 53 years old and still unable to make a decision without looking at him first. She had a special talent for rewriting history to make Vanessa the victim in any situation. "Your sister is just more sensitive," she'd say whenever I pointed out the blatant favoritism. "She needs more support." And then there was Vanessa, 25 years old, 3 years younger than me, but decades behind in maturity. She'd gone to private school, studied abroad in Paris, and had her small business venture, a spa that lasted exactly 4 months before hemorrhaging all the money our parents had invested. Now she was $50,000 in debt, living back home, and somehow that was everyone's problem but hers. The phone rang while I was reviewing my mortgage pre-approval paperwork. Vanessa's name on the screen made my stomach drop. "Tonya, I'm in trouble," she sobbed. "Like really bad trouble. The creditors are calling and Daddy says he can't help anymore. You have to do something." "I'm sorry you're struggling, Vanessa, but you're so selfish. You have all that money saved and you won't help your own sister? I could lose everything." Everything she'd been given, she meant. Everything she'd squandered. I hung up, my hands shaking. That call felt like a warning shot, though I didn't recognize it at the time. The storm was coming, and Vanessa's tears were just the first drops of rain. The pre-approval letter felt like gold in my hands. $280,000. Enough for a modest home in a decent neighborhood. I'd spent weeks researching, driving through areas during different times of day, checking crime statistics, and school ratings for the future I might have someday. The house hunting process was exhausting but exhilarating. Every showing was a possibility, a chance at the life I'd been building toward since I was 15. Too expensive. Too much work needed. Bad foundation. Each rejection just made me more determined. Then I found it. 1247 Maple Street. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a small yard with an old oak tree. Built in 1962 but well maintained. The kitchen needed updating and the carpet was outdated, but the bones were solid. Listed at $265,000, within my range with room to negotiate. Standing in that living room during the showing, I could see my whole future. Morning coffee by the window, maybe a dog someday. Space for a home office, room to breathe, to exist, to matter. The realtor was talking about property taxes and HOA fees, but all I could hear was my heart saying home. I made an offer that day, $260,000, with my hard-earned $67,000 as a down payment. 20% down meant no PMI, better rates. Every financial decision I'd made for 13 years had led to this moment. I didn't tell my family. Not yet. Some part of me knew they'd find a way to ruin it, to make it about them or about Vanessa. This was mine, and I wanted to hold it close just a little longer. The offer was accepted 3 days later. Closing was set for next month. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. Alone. The metal filing cabinet in my apartment closet held 13 years of evidence I didn't know I'd need. Every pay stub, every receipt, every bank statement. It started as a habit from my accounting classes, but it became something more, a paper trail of my independence. The red folder labeled family was the thickest. Inside were receipts that told a story. $3,000 for Vanessa's college textbooks when she forgot to budget for them. $5,000 for her car repairs after her third accident. $8,000 in total for her semester in Paris when she miscalculated expenses. Each one with my signature, paid from my savings, never repaid. Then there were the loans to my parents. $500 here for Dad's golf club membership. $1,000 there for Mom's kitchen renovation. "We'll pay you back when things are better," they'd say. Things were never better. The total was over $20,000, all documented. All with their promises to repay, written in text messages I'd screenshotted and saved. I kept every receipt, not knowing they'd become evidence. The documentation wasn't meant to be ammunition. It was just my way of tracking where my money went, making sure I stayed on budget despite the constant financial bleeding my family caused. The morning I was organizing papers for the house closing, I found the birthday card from my 16th birthday. Inside, my father's handwriting. Responsibility is the greatest gift we can give you. Love, Dad. Next to it was the receipt for Vanessa's Sweet 16 party, $4,500 for a venue, DJ, and catering for 100 guests. The contrast was laughable now. I locked the cabinet and put the key in my purse. Something told me to keep everything close, though I couldn't say why. Intuition, maybe. Or just 13 years of experience teaching me that with my family, I always needed proof. Moving day came on a perfect Saturday morning. The keys felt surreal in my hand as I unlocked my front door for the first time. My front door, my house. The words kept repeating in my mind like a prayer answered. My friends Rachel and Marcus arrived with coffee and donuts ready to help. Marcus wasn't my lawyer yet, just a friend from the accounting firm who'd offered his truck and muscles for the move. "Where's your family?" he asked, looking around the empty driveway. "They're busy," I lied, grabbing a box to avoid his eyes. The truth was, I hadn't told them. This day was mine, and I wasn't ready to share it with people who'd find a way to diminish it. We worked all morning, carrying boxes of my carefully accumulated life into rooms that were actually mine. Rachel hung pictures while Marcus assembled furniture. By afternoon, the house was starting to look like home. Simple, modest, but absolutely perfect. "To Tonia's castle." Rachel raised a beer as we sat on my living room floor, surrounded by boxes but happy. "May it be everything you dreamed of." "And may your family never find out," Marcus joked, not knowing how much I hoped for the same thing. That first night alone in my house, I walked through each room, touching walls, opening cabinets, flushing toilets just because I could. This was what 13 years of sacrifice had built. In the backyard, I sat under the oak tree and cried. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of finally having something that was just mine. The peace lasted exactly 1 week. I should have known it was too good to last. With my family, it always was. The doorbell rang at 8 p.m. the following Saturday. Through the peephole, I saw my parents' faces, Vanessa standing behind them. My stomach dropped. I hadn't given them my address. "Surprise!" Mom said when I opened the door, pushing past me without invitation. "Vanessa mentioned she saw you at the grocery store near here, so we asked around. The neighbors are so friendly." They walked through my house like they owned it. Dad testing door frames, Mom opening closets, Vanessa already calculating square footage with her eyes. The violation of my space felt like watching someone read my diary. "It's adequate," Dad finally pronounced, like he was grading a paper. "Bit small, but it'll do for now." "Do for what?" I asked, though I already felt the trap closing. "Well, for you and Vanessa, of course." Mom said it like it was obvious. "She needs a place to stay while she gets back on her feet. The creditors are being absolutely unreasonable, and living at home is stunting her growth." "She can have the master bedroom," Dad added, already planning. "You're used to small spaces anyway." The audacity took my breath away. "This is my house. I bought it with my own money. Vanessa isn't moving in." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Vanessa started crying on cue. Mom rushed to comfort her, and Dad's face turned that particular shade of red I remembered from childhood. "Your sister needs help, and you have extra room. Family helps family, Tonia." "I've been helping family since I was 15. I'm done." "You ungrateful—" Dad stepped closer, his voice rising. "We raised you, fed you, kept a roof over your head, and this is how you repay us? You did the legal minimum required of parents. You want a medal?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mom gasped. Vanessa stopped fake crying to stare. Dad's face went from red to purple. "You'll regret this," he said quietly, which was somehow worse than yelling. "We'll make sure of it. You think you're so independent? Let's see how independent you are when we're done with you." They left, but Dad turned at the door with words that would echo for weeks. "You'll be hearing from our lawyer. This house has room for your sister, or we'll make sure it has room for no one." The threat hung in the air long after they'd gone. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday. I had to sign for it, my hands shaking as I recognized the law firm's name on the envelope. Brennan and Associates. They'd actually done it. My own parents had hired a lawyer to sue me. I sat at my kitchen table and read the complaint 3 times, each time hoping the words would somehow change. They didn't. Robert and Margaret Sinclair versus Tonia Sinclair. The lawsuit claimed unjust enrichment and demanded either partial ownership of my house be transferred to Vanessa or compensation for parental investment. The numbers made me laugh, then cry, then laugh again. They'd itemized my childhood like a business expense. Food, $65,000. Clothing, $15,000. Medical care, $25,000. Education, $40,000. Miscellaneous care and support, $55,000. Total parental investment, $200,000 plus interest. They wanted a judge to order me to pay them back for raising me. The second page was worse. They'd included a comparative analysis showing how much they'd spent on each daughter, arguing that since they'd invested equally in both children should share equally in any assets acquired. The fact that Vanessa had squandered her investment was apparently irrelevant. I called in sick to work the next day and spent the morning Googling lawyers, family law, property disputes, defense against frivolous lawsuits. The retainer fees made me nauseated. $5,000 just to start. But what choice did I have? By afternoon, I was sitting across from Marcus Smith, the same Marcus who'd helped me move, who I'd discovered was actually a lawyer specializing in family law. "I wondered when you'd need my professional help," he said, reading the complaint. "Your parents are either desperate or delusional, possibly both. Can they actually win this?" His answer chilled me. "Probably not, but they can make your life hell trying." "I'll take your case," Marcus said, setting down the complaint. "But you need to understand what you're committing to. Fighting family in court isn't just about winning, it's about being willing to burn bridges that can never be rebuilt." "They lit the match when they filed this lawsuit," Marcus nodded, pulling out a legal pad. "Then we fight. First, I need everything. Every receipt, every text message, every email. Anytime you gave them money, anytime they asked for help. We're going to build a wall of evidence so high they'll need a ladder to see over it." "I have 13 years of documentation," I said, thinking of my filing cabinet. "Pay stubs, bank statements, receipts for money I gave them. And Vanessa," Marcus's eyebrows raised. "You kept all that?" "I'm an accountant. I keep everything." "Thank God for that." He leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. They'll try to pressure you to settle. They'll use family members, guilt, maybe even public embarrassment. You need to be prepared for all of it." "I won't give them my house." "We'll need everything. Every receipt, every record," Marcus said, his legal mind already strategizing. "Your parents made a crucial error. They put a price tag on parenting. No judge likes that. But we need to be bulletproof." The retainer agreement felt like signing a declaration of war. $5,000 to defend myself against the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. As I wrote the check, I thought about all the things that money could have bought. Home improvements, a vacation, peace of mind. "One more thing," Marcus said as I stood to leave. "Document everything from now on, every contact, every threat, every tear. This is going to get ugly before it gets better." He was right. I just didn't know how ugly. If you're finding value in this story, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. I know many of you have dealt with family members who feel entitled to your success. Drop a comment below sharing your experience. How did you handle family members who thought they owned your achievements? Your stories help others know they're not alone. Let's continue. My apartment looked like a forensic accounting crime scene. 13 years of financial records spread across every surface, organized by date, category, and recipient. The dining table held the Vanessa files, over $30,000 in gifts disguised as loans. The coffee table displayed the parent collection, another $20,000 in conveniently forgotten debts. The most damning evidence came from my old phone backups, text after text of promises to repay, acknowledgments of loans, and thank you messages that proved every dollar was given, not owed. Vanessa's message from last year was particularly precious. Thanks for covering my rent again. I promise I'll pay you back when my business takes off. You're the best sister ever. 3 days into evidence gathering, I found the smoking gun. An email from Dad, dated 5 years ago. Tonia, we know we've asked a lot of you financially while we help Vanessa through school. You've never complained, never asked for anything in return. That's why you're our rock. Our rock. Not our daughter, our rock. The one who holds everything up while getting nothing but pressure in return. Marcus was ecstatic when I brought him 4 boxes of organized evidence. This is beautiful, he said, flipping through the files. You've documented financial abuse, parentification, and clear favoritism. They want to talk about investment? We'll show them exactly where their investments went. That evening, Vanessa texted, I'm sorry about Mom and Dad. I told them this was wrong, but they won't listen. Maybe we can work something out between us? I screenshot the message and added it to the pile. Even her apology was a manipulation, a soft approach where the hard one had failed. I didn't respond. Marcus had advised no contact outside of legal channels, and I was following his advice to the letter. The family phone tree activated within days. First came Aunt Patricia, Mom's sister, with her sweet as honey voice, dripping disappointment. Your mother is heartbroken, Tonia. How could you abandon family like this? Then Uncle Ray, Dad's brother. You know, family helps family. That's how we were raised. You're being selfish. The cousins texted. The family friends called. Even my grandmother, 92 and in assisted living, was weaponized. Grandma's so upset about the family fighting, it might affect her health. Each call followed the same script. I was ungrateful, selfish, breaking my mother's heart, killing my grandmother, destroying the family. Not one person asked for my side of the story. Blood was thicker than water, and I was apparently thin as air. The worst was when Aunt Ruth, the one relative I'd thought might understand, showed up at my door uninvited. I know they haven't been perfect parents, she said, sitting on my couch uninvited. But suing you? That's just their way of getting your attention. Drop this nonsense and give Vanessa a room. It's not worth losing your family over. They sued me, Aunt Ruth. They started this. And you can end it. Be the bigger person. I've been the bigger person since I was 15. I'm done growing for them. She left shaking her head, muttering about my generation's selfishness. That night, my phone buzzed with a group family text I'd been added to without consent. 23 relatives discussing my situation like I wasn't even there. The consensus was clear. I was the villain in this story. I left the group and blocked 23 numbers. Marcus had warned me about flying monkeys, people sent to do the narcissist's bidding. My family had an entire air force. Stay strong, you've earned this, came a single supportive text from Rachel. One voice of reason in a chorus of manipulation. The mediation room at the courthouse felt like a cage with beige walls. Across the table sat my parents, their lawyer, and Vanessa, who apparently needed to be there for emotional support. I sat with Marcus, feeling outnumbered but not outgunned. Let's cut through this, their lawyer Brennan began. My clients are willing to drop the lawsuit for a simple resolution. Vanessa gets added to the deed as co-owner, or Tonia pays $100,000 in recognition of parental investment. Everyone wins. How is extortion a win? Marcus responded calmly. Mom started crying. Of course. We don't want money, we just want fairness. We gave both girls everything equally. My client has records showing $50,000 in gifts to Vanessa over the past decade, none of which were given to Tonia. Shall we discuss equal? Dad slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. We're her parents. Exactly, Marcus said. Parents, not creditors, not investors. Parents who had a legal obligation to provide for their minor child. Vanessa finally spoke, her voice dripping with practiced innocence. Tonia, I just need help. Is that so wrong? You have a whole house. That I worked for. While I was in school, you had advantages I didn't. The audacity was breathtaking. My advantages were double shifts and ramen dinners while she studied abroad on mom and dad's dime. The mediator, clearly exhausted, tried one more time. Ms. Sinclair, would you consider any compromise? Perhaps a rental agreement? No. Then we'll see you in court, Brennan said, packing his briefcase. Judge Hayes isn't known for sympathy toward ungrateful children. As we left, Dad whispered just loud enough for me to hear. See you in court, daughter. The way he said daughter made it sound like a curse. Work became my escape and my struggle. The morning coffee shop shift meant smiling at customers while my phone buzzed with family harassment. The afternoon accounting job required focus while my mind replayed legal strategies. I was exhausted, distracted, and it showed. Tonia, can we talk? My accounting supervisor, Janet, called me into her office. My heart sank. I couldn't afford to lose this job, not with legal fees mounting. I've noticed you've been distracted lately. That's not like you. She paused, studying my face. I heard through the grapevine about your family situation. Small town, people talk. I'm sorry, I'll do better. I'm not criticizing. I'm offering support. Janet leaned back. 20 years ago, my brother sued me over our mother's estate. Family lawsuits are special kinds of hell. If you need flexibility for court dates, you have it. The relief nearly broke me. Thank you. Thank you. That evening, Rachel came by with Chinese takeout and wine. You look like death warmed over, she said, unpacking containers. When's the last time you ate actual food? Tuesday? I couldn't remember. This lawsuit is consuming you. It's not just the lawsuit. It's realizing that my entire family sees me as a resource, not a person. 23 relatives, Rachel. 23 people who think I owe my parents my house because they did the legal minimum to raise me. Not everyone, Rachel said quietly. Janet told me about her conversation with you. She wanted me to tell you that half the office is rooting for you. We've all got toxic family stories. Even you? Especially me. Why do you think I moved here from Seattle? 3,000 miles wasn't far enough from my mother, but it helped. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone. The night before trial, I sat in Marcus's office going over testimony for the 5th time. My voice was hoarse from practice, my hands raw from wringing them. Every possible question had been rehearsed, every answer refined to legal precision. Remember, Marcus said, adjusting his glasses. Judge Eleanor Hayes values evidence over emotion. Your parents will play the heartstring symphony. We'll play the facts. When they cry about investment, you show receipts. When they claim equal treatment, we show the disparity. Stay calm, stay factual. What if I cry? Then you cry. You're human, but tears won't win this. Truth will. My phone lit up with a text from Vanessa. Last chance. Give me half the house or tomorrow you lose everything. Mom and Dad have been planning this for months. You don't know what they have on you. I showed Marcus. He smiled grimly. Screenshot that. She just admitted to conspiracy and attempted extortion. Thank you, Vanessa. At home, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. At 2 a.m., I gave up and pulled out the photo album I'd hidden away, the few family pictures I was actually in. There I was at 8, standing slightly apart while Vanessa sat on Dad's lap. At 12, in the background while Vanessa blew out birthday candles. At 15, the last family photo I appeared in, already looking like I knew I didn't belong. Tomorrow, 13 years of receipts speak louder than blood. I wrote it on a sticky note and put it on my bathroom mirror, my mantra for court. The morning came too fast and not fast enough. I dressed carefully. Professional but not expensive, respectful but not weak. In my bag, the evidence that would either save my home or lose my family, as if I hadn't lost them already. Marcus met me at the courthouse steps. Ready? No, but I'm here anyway. That's all that matters. Let's go show them what happens when you mistake your daughter for a bank account. We walked through the courthouse doors together, toward whatever justice looked like for an invisible daughter who'd finally decided to be seen. Courtroom 401 was packed. Word had spread through our small town, and apparently, family drama was better than cable TV. I recognized neighbors, co-workers, even my old high school English teacher. The public gallery hummed with whispered speculation. Judge Eleanor Hayes entered at precisely 9 a.m. 58 years old, with silver hair pulled into a severe bun, she commanded instant silence with just her presence. Her reputation preceded her. Fair but taking no nonsense, especially in family disputes. Sinclair versus Sinclair, she read, already looking tired. A property dispute between parents and their adult daughter. Counsel, please present your opening arguments. Brennan stood first, his expensive suit making him look like a TV lawyer. Your Honor, parenting is an investment that deserves returns, he began, and I saw Judge Hayes's eyebrow twitch. My client spent over $200,000 raising the defendant, sacrificing their own comfort for her future. Now that she's successful, they simply ask for recognition of that investment through partial property ownership for their younger daughter, who hasn't had the same opportunities. The crowd murmured. Some nodded along, buying the sob story. Marcus rose slowly, deliberately. Your Honor, the plaintiffs are asking this court to treat their child as a business venture. They want ROI on diaper changes. They seek dividends from dinner. They believe that fulfilling their legal obligations as parents creates a debt their daughter must repay. This isn't a lawsuit. It's extortion with a legal filing number. Judge Hayes leaned forward. Mr. Brennan, are your clients seriously arguing that raising their child was an investment requiring returns? Your Honor, they provided above and beyond. I asked a yes or no question. Yes, Your Honor. The judge made a note, a long note. The sound of her pen scratching was the only noise in the packed courtroom. Robert Sinclair took the stand like he was accepting an award. He'd brought props, a leather binder thick with what he called investment documentation. The crowd leaned forward as he opened it with ceremony. We invested $200,000 in raising her, he declared, pointing at me like I was a faulty product. Food, clothing, shelter, education, all itemized here. We have receipts going back 28 years. He actually had a spreadsheet. Color-coded. Breakfast, $2,050 per day. Lunch money, $300. Dinner, $500. Utilities allocated by bedroom square footage. Even birthday presents were listed as goodwill investments. Margaret took her turn, tears already flowing. We sacrificed everything for our girls. Vacations we didn't take, cars we didn't buy, all so they could have better lives. And now Tonia acts like she did everything alone. We just want fairness for Vanessa. What sacrifices did you make specifically for Tonia? Marcus asked on cross-examination. Well, we raised her. What about Vanessa's private school? Her car? Her semester in Paris? That's different. Vanessa needed those things. And what did Tonia need? Margaret faltered. Tonia was always so independent. Then came Vanessa, dressed like she was attending her own funeral. I just need help, she whimpered to the judge. Tonia has this whole house while I'm drowning in debt. We're sisters. Family should share. Ms. Sinclair, Judge Hayes interrupted, how much money has your sister given you over the years? Vanessa went pale. I don't remember exactly. Would $30,000 refresh your memory? Because that's what the defense claims. The gasp from the gallery was audible. Vanessa looked at our parents desperately, but they were too busy looking at their shoes to save her. Marcus approached the bench carrying 4 boxes of evidence. The thud as he set them down echoed through the courtroom. Your Honor, I have 13 years of evidence, financial records, receipts, bank statements, and correspondence that tell the real story of the Sinclair family dynamics. I took the stand, my hands steady despite my racing heart. Marcus started gently. Tonia, when did you start working? 15 years old. 2 jobs, morning coffee shop and evening retail. Why? Because I learned early that if I wanted anything, I had to earn it myself. Tell us about these. Marcus held up a stack of receipts. Those are payments I made for Vanessa's expenses: college textbooks, rent, car repairs, her business startup costs, over $30,000 total. The gallery murmured. Several people were taking notes. And these? Another stack. Loans to my parents, about $20,000, never repaid. I have 13 years of evidence, Your Honor, I said, my voice growing stronger. Every receipt, every pay stub, every sacrifice. While Vanessa got private school, I got public. While she got a car for her 16th birthday, I got a card telling me responsibility was a gift. While she studied in Paris, I worked double shifts to pay for my community college. Marcus presented the crown jewel, Dad's email admitting I was their rock, who never complained despite being asked to support Vanessa. Did your parents ever offer you the same opportunities they gave Vanessa? Marcus asked. No. They said I didn't need them. I was the responsible one. And now they want your house? They want to give it to the same person they've been giving everything to for 25 years. Only this time, it's something I built myself. Judge Hayes was taking extensive notes, her expression unreadable but intense. Brennan approached me like a shark smelling blood. Ms. Sinclair, you lived in your parents' home for 18 years, correct? Yes. Ate their food? Yes. Used their electricity, water, heat? Yes. And you believe you owe them nothing for that? I looked him straight in the eye. I believe parents owe their children those things. It's called parenting, not a loan service. But surely you feel some gratitude. Gratitude and ownership are different things. I'm grateful they met their legal obligations. That doesn't mean they own my achievements. Did you ever receive financial support after 18? Brennan pressed, clearly thinking he had something. No. In fact, I started paying them rent at 18 while living at home and working to save for college. That wasn't in their paperwork. I saw Mom shift uncomfortably. Judge Hayes interjected. Mr. Brennan, did your clients charge their adult daughter rent while claiming they were investing in her? I'd need to verify that, Your Honor. Please do. Ms. Sinclair, do you have proof of these rent payments? Marcus stood. Exhibit 47, Your Honor. 12 months of rent receipts, $400 per month, signed by Robert Sinclair. The judge's expression shifted slightly. So they charged one daughter rent while paying for the other's apartment in Paris? That's correct, Your Honor. Mr. Sinclair, the judge addressed my father directly, do you understand parental obligations under the law? Dad's face reddened. I understand we went above and beyond. That wasn't my question. Do you understand that providing food, shelter, and basic care to your minor child is a legal obligation, not an investment? The silence stretched until it snapped. Yes, he finally muttered. Good. Continue, Mr. Smith. Judge Hayes took control of the courtroom with a commanding presence that made everyone sit straighter. Mr. and Mrs. Sinclair, I have some questions. Mr. Sinclair, you itemized breakfast at $2.50 per day for your daughter. Did you charge her for these breakfasts? No, but did you expect repayment at the time? Not exactly, but yes or no? No. Mrs. Sinclair, you mentioned sacrifices. What specific sacrifices did you make for Tonia that you didn't make for Vanessa? Mom looked confused. Well, they're different people. That's not what I asked. What did you sacrifice specifically for Tonia? The silence was deafening. Mom looked at Dad, at Brennan, anywhere but at the judge. I'll rephrase, Judge Hayes continued. How much did you spend on Vanessa's education? About $80,000. And Tonia's? She went to community college. That she paid for herself, according to these records. So I ask again, what sacrifices did you make specifically for Tonia? Then the judge turned to Vanessa. Ms. Sinclair, You testified that you need help. Have you ever paid your sister back any of the $30,000 she gave you? I. Times were hard. Have you ever offered to pay her back? Vanessa's whispered no carried through the silent courtroom. But you believe you deserve half her house? My parents said. Vanessa caught herself, but too late. Your parents said what? They said. They said Tonia owed us, that she got to work and save while I was in school, so now it was my turn to benefit. The admission hung in the air like a confession. Judge Hayes's expression hardened visibly. The gallery erupted in whispers until she banged her gavel. Order! I've heard enough. We'll recess for 30 minutes while I consider my ruling. The 30-minute recess felt like 30 hours. The hallway outside the courtroom buzzed with speculation. I stood with Marcus and Rachel, who'd taken a day off to support me, while my family huddled at the opposite end like they were planning a last-minute strategy. She's going to rule in your favor, Marcus said quietly. The judge's questions were devastating to their case. Don't jinx it, I whispered back, watching my parents gesture animatedly at their lawyer. Neighbors and co-workers approached me with quiet words of support. About time someone stood up to them, Mrs. Patterson from next door said. We've watched them treat you differently for years. Even strangers were choosing sides. Charging you rent while paying for your sister's apartment? Shameful, an older woman muttered as she passed. My parents still looked confident, though. Dad caught my eye and smirked, that same expression he'd worn my whole life when he knew he was about to win an argument through sheer force of will. Mom stood beside him, not looking at me at all, while Vanessa typed furiously on her phone. They're still sure they'll win, I said to Marcus. Narcissists always are, right until reality hits. The bailiff appeared. Court is resuming. We filed back in, the gallery even fuller than before. Word had spread during the break. Judge Hayes returned, carrying a legal pad covered in notes. Her expression was stern, almost angry. I've reviewed the evidence and testimony, she began, and my heart stopped. This case has been one of the most disturbing displays of parental entitlement I've encountered in 30 years on the bench. My parents' smirks faltered. Brennan shifted uncomfortably. Before I issue my ruling, I have a few more things to say. The entire courtroom held its breath. Judge Hayes adjusted her glasses and began reading from her notes, each word deliberate and cutting. In the case of Sinclair versus Sinclair, this court has been asked to treat the fundamental duty of parenthood as a commercial transaction. The plaintiffs have presented raising their child as an investment requiring returns, complete with itemized spreadsheets of breakfast costs and utility allocations. She looked up, directly at my parents. Let me be absolutely clear. Parental duty is not a loan to be repaid. The law recognizes that parents have an obligation, not an option, an obligation, to provide for their minor children. This includes food, shelter, clothing, medical care, and education through high school. The judge pulled out several law books, citing case after case. Morrison v. Morrison, 1987. Parents cannot claim reimbursement for expenses incurred in raising their children. Baker v. Baker, 1995. The parent-child relationship does not create a debtor-creditor relationship. Shall I continue? Your Honor, Brennan attempted. My clients went above and beyond basic obligations. Did they? Judge Hayes pulled out our evidence. They charged their 18-year-old daughter rent while living at home. They paid for one daughter's private education, car, and international travel while requiring the other to work from age 15. They accepted over $50,000 in financial assistance from the defendant while never repaying a cent. This isn't going above and beyond, counselor. This is exploitation. The crowd's murmuring grew louder. Someone whispered, "My God." Furthermore, the judge continued, the evidence shows clear financial abuse. The defendant was parentified, forced to support not just herself, but her adult sister, while still a teenager herself. The plaintiffs created an environment where one child was treasured, and the other was treated as a resource to be mined. My mother started crying. Real tears this time, not the performative ones from earlier. The fact that the plaintiffs felt comfortable filing this lawsuit, that they genuinely believe their daughter owes them for the basic care they were legally required to provide, speaks to a fundamental misunderstanding of parenthood that this court finds deeply troubling. Judge Hayes paused, letting her words sink in. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the fluorescent lights humming. We're approaching the judge's final verdict. If this story resonates with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that standing up to family manipulation is not wrong. Have you ever had to take legal action against family? Let me know in the comments. Your engagement helps these important stories reach more people. Now, let's hear what Judge Hayes decided. My father shot up from his chair, his face purple with rage. Your Honor, this is unfair. She owes us. We gave her life. We gave her everything. Mr. Sinclair, sit down immediately or I'll hold you in contempt. This is our daughter. Family takes care of family. Judge Hayes's gavel came down hard. Mr. Sinclair, you're dangerously close to contempt charges. Sit down. Dad remained standing, defiant. She's ungrateful. After everything we did. Bailiff, the judge said calmly. The bailiff stepped forward, and Brennan frantically pulled Dad back into his seat. But the damage was done. Dad had shown everyone exactly who he was, a man who believed ownership over his child was his right. Then Mom tried a different approach. She swayed dramatically, clutching her chest. I can't breathe. My heart. The performance was Oscar-worthy, except Judge Hayes had seen it all. Mrs. Sinclair, do you require medical attention? I can have paramedics here in 2 minutes. Mom's recovery was miraculous. No, I'll be fine. Excellent. Then we can continue. Vanessa couldn't contain herself any longer. She jumped up, screaming, "This is unfair! She owes us! She has a house and I have nothing, nothing!" Ms. Sinclair, you're not a party to this lawsuit. Sit down or leave my courtroom. But she's supposed to help me. That's what family does. According to these records, she has helped you, to the tune of $30,000 that you never repaid. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She sat down hard, finally speechless. Judge Hayes surveyed the chaos with disgust. This behavior only reinforces my decision. A family that truly loved their daughter wouldn't be here trying to take her home. Judge Hayes's voice rang with authority as she delivered her final ruling. This court finds the plaintiff's claims not only baseless but morally reprehensible. The lawsuit filed by Robert and Margaret Sinclair against their daughter Tonia Sinclair is dismissed with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. The gallery erupted. Some applauded. My parents sat frozen, unable to process what was happening. Furthermore, the judge continued, raising her voice over the noise, this court finds that the plaintiffs have engaged in frivolous litigation with malicious intent. They've weaponized the legal system to attempt extortion of their own child. She turned to my parents, her disgust evident. Mr. and Mrs. Sinclair, you've stood in my courtroom and argued that your daughter owes you money for being born. You've presented spreadsheets calculating the cost of her breakfast as if she were a business expense. You've shown favoritism so blatant that your own younger daughter admitted you told her she deserved her sister's assets because it was her turn. Mom sobbed. Dad's face had gone from purple to white. This court orders the plaintiffs to pay all court costs and the defendant's legal fees, which I estimate at approximately $15,000. This is the consequence of filing a frivolous lawsuit designed to harass and extort. Your Honor, Brennan started, my clients can't afford. Then perhaps they should have considered that before filing this lawsuit. They seemed quite confident in their financial calculations when trying to bill their daughter for her childhood. Judge Hayes wasn't finished. I also want to address something for the record. Parents who truly love their children celebrate their successes. They don't invoice them. They don't demand returns on investment. And they certainly don't drag them to court to steal what they've earned through their own hard work. She looked directly at me for the first time. Ms. Tonia Sinclair, You owe your parents nothing beyond what any adult child owes. Basic human respect, which they've forfeited through their actions today. This house is yours, earned through your own labor, and no one, not even family, has the right to take it from you. The gavel came down with finality. Case dismissed. Court is adjourned. The courtroom exploded into chaos. My parents sat completely silent, stunned into speechlessness for perhaps the first time in their lives. Dad's mouth hung open, his face cycling through shades of red and white like a broken traffic light. Mom stared at the judge's bench as if waiting for someone to yell, "Just kidding!" Vanessa was the first to break. She jumped up and ran from the courtroom, her designer heels clicking frantically against the floor. The door slammed behind her with an echo that seemed to say everything about our relationship, always running when things got hard. The gallery was divided. Some neighbors and coworkers approached me with congratulations. Others, mainly family friends, shook their heads and muttered about young people these days as they filed out. Then something unexpected happened. Aunt Ruth, who'd lectured me about being the bigger person, walked over to my parents instead of me. "You actually sued your own daughter? For her house? Robert, Margaret, what were you thinking?" "She owes us," Dad started. "She owes you nothing. You charged her rent at 18 while paying for Vanessa's apartment. Everyone knew you played favorites, but this is beyond shameful." More relatives began distancing themselves, literally stepping away from my parents as if their entitlement was contagious. Uncle Ray, who'd called me selfish just weeks ago, wouldn't even make eye contact with them. "We did our best," Mom whimpered to anyone who would listen. But the crowd was already dispersing, leaving them sitting alone at their table with their lawyer, who was already packing up, probably calculating his own bill. The courtroom that had been packed to watch our family drama was emptying fast, leaving my parents to sit in the ruins of their own making. They'd wanted an audience for my humiliation. Instead, they got one for their own. Marcus shook my hand firmly, professionally, but his eyes were warm with genuine happiness. "You stood up for yourself with grace and evidence. That's exactly what won this case." "Thank you for everything," I said, meaning it deeply. "For believing this was worth fighting." Family law is usually about divorce. This was about divorcing yourself from toxic expectations. Honestly, it's been an honor. As we gathered our boxes of evidence, Judge Hayes did something unexpected. She approached me directly, which Marcus later told me was highly unusual. "Ms. Sinclair," she said quietly, "in 30 years, I've seen many family disputes. Rarely have I seen someone so young show such strength and preparation. You didn't just win a case today, you broke a cycle." "Thank you, Your Honor." "Don't thank me, thank yourself. You did the work, 13 years of it from what I saw. That house is yours free and clear. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She walked away before I could respond, her robes billowing behind her like wings of justice. Rachel hugged me tight in the hallway. "You did it. You actually did it." "I can't believe it's over." "The lawsuit is over," Marcus corrected gently. "The family fallout is just beginning. Are you prepared for that?" I looked back through the courtroom doors where my parents still sat, Brennan explaining something that probably involved the word appeal. They looked smaller somehow, older, like the weight of their own expectations had finally crushed them. "I've been preparing for this my whole life," I said. "I just didn't know it." We walked out of the courthouse into bright afternoon sunlight. The air felt different, lighter, cleaner, like I could finally breathe without asking permission first. Within an hour of leaving court, my phone buzzed with a notification. Vanessa had blocked me on every social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn. The professional networking site seemed particularly petty, but that was Vanessa. Go big or go home, except she couldn't go home because she'd lost her apartment and now lived with our parents. At the courthouse clerk's office, I watched my parents sign the papers acknowledging the judgment against them. $15,000 in legal fees. Dad's hand shook as he signed. Mom wouldn't look at anyone. How are we supposed to pay this? Mom asked the clerk, as if she might have a payment plan for parental entitlement. That's between you and your creditors, ma'am. I drove home, to my home, in silence. No radio, no podcast, just the sound of my own breathing and the reality settling in. I'd won. I'd kept my house, but I'd lost my family, not that I'd ever really had them. The house felt different when I walked in. Not just mine anymore, but definitively mine. Legally, unquestionably mine. I walked through each room, touching walls, running my fingers over door frames. This was what standing up for yourself felt like. Solid, real, permanent. On the kitchen counter sat an envelope that hadn't been there this morning. My neighbor must have brought it in. The return address made my stomach clench. Robert and Margaret Sinclair. I almost threw it away unopened. Then curiosity won. Inside was a single sheet of paper with Dad's handwriting. You may have won in court, but you've lost your family. Hope the house was worth it. I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. Then I pulled it out, smoothed it flat, and filed it with all the other evidence, just in case. That night, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. If winning a lawsuit against your own parents didn't qualify, nothing would. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels full, not empty. I thought about the 13-year journey that had led here. Every double shift, every skipped meal, every birthday spent alone because I was working. The exhaustion that lived in my bones. The dreams deferred to save one more dollar. It had all led to this moment, sitting in my own home that no one could take away. The photo album I'd looked at before trial lay open on the coffee table. There I was, the ghost in every family photo, hovering at the edges like I was apologizing for taking up space. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Family isn't about blood, it's about respect, I said to the empty room, testing how the words felt. They felt true. They felt like freedom. My phone buzzed with messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. High school classmates who'd watched my parents fawn over Vanessa while I worked. College professors who remembered the girl who never missed class despite working 2 jobs. They all said variations of the same thing, about time. But the message that mattered most came from Rachel. Proud of you. Your real family is everyone who saw your worth when your blood relatives couldn't. I looked around my house, my sanctuary, my proof that I mattered, my freedom made tangible in wood and stone. I'd lost the family I was born into, but maybe that just made room for the family I'd choose. Tomorrow I'd start dealing with the aftermath. Tonight, I just sat in my victory and let it sink into my bones where the exhaustion used to live. 1 month after the trial, my life had settled into a new rhythm. The morning alarm still rang at 5 a.m., but now it felt different. I wasn't working to escape anymore. I was working to build. Rachel had moved into the spare bedroom as a roommate, insisting on paying rent despite my protests. "You're not running a charity," she'd said firmly. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you actually eat vegetables." Her presence transformed the house from a fortress into a home. My work life improved dramatically. Without the constant emotional drain of family drama, I had energy to excel. Janet promoted me to senior accountant, noting that I seemed lighter, more focused. The coffee shop manager asked if I wanted to cut back hours. For the first time in 13 years, I said yes. Sunday dinners became a new tradition, not with the family I'd lost, but with the one I'd found. Marcus and his wife, Janet and her partner, Rachel, and whoever she was dating that week. We'd cook together, laugh together, exist together without anyone keeping score of who owed whom. The doorbell rarely rang unexpectedly anymore. The family flying monkeys had given up after the trial's public humiliation. The neighbors who'd witnessed everything treated me with a new respect, not pity for the girl with mean parents, but admiration for the woman who'd stood up to them. Sometimes I'd catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to knock on my door and tell me I didn't deserve this peace. But days turned to weeks, and the only shoes that dropped were my own, kicked off after a normal 8-hour workday. This was my new normal, a house full of chosen family, work that didn't consume me, and space to breathe without apology. The extended family recalibration happened slowly, like ice thawing. First came Aunt Ruth, appearing at my door with a homemade lasagna and an apology. "I was wrong," she said simply. "I told you to be the bigger person without seeing you'd been the bigger person your whole life. I'm sorry." "My door is open to those who respect my boundaries," I told her, accepting the lasagna and the apology. She became the bridge to others. Cousins who'd been poisoned against me started reaching out, wanting to hear my side. Some came with genuine curiosity and stayed for coffee. Others came fishing for gossip and found my door closing politely but firmly. Uncle Ray sent a card with a check for $100. "For your housewarming. Should have done this months ago." I cashed it and sent a thank you note. Baby steps. The family reunions continued without me, but I heard things through Ruth. My parents had become pariahs, the relatives who'd sued their own daughter. Vanessa still lived with them, her business failure and debts making her unable to leave. The three of them trapped in their own bitter bubble, feeding off each other's resentment. "They ask about you," Ruth told me over coffee one Sunday. "What do you tell them?" "That you're thriving, that you've built a beautiful life, that the door they slam shut can't be kicked open just because they've changed their minds." Grandmother called once, her voice frail but clear. "I'm proud of you, dear. Don't let anyone tell you different." Sometimes cutting off a diseased branch saves the whole tree. I kept that voicemail saved in my phone. On hard days, when I questioned my choices, I'd replay it. Validation from the matriarch meant something, even if it came too late to change anything. Through the small-town grapevine, I learned about my parents' downward spiral. They'd had to sell Mom's Lexus to pay the legal fees. The car she'd loved to show off, the one she'd bought while I was eating ramen to save for textbooks, gone to pay for their failed attempt to steal my house. Dad's golf club membership was canceled. The country club life they'd maintained while charging me rent at 18 was over. They'd become the cautionary tale whispered about at PTA meetings and church socials. "Did you hear about the Sinclairs? Sued their own daughter and lost everything." Vanessa's presence made everything worse for them. 3 adults in a house built on delusions, each blaming the others for their situation. Ruth told me Vanessa and Dad fought constantly, him calling her a failure, her calling him a monster for losing the lawsuit. Mom just cried and played victim to anyone who'd listen. They were human, though, not cartoon villains. Ruth mentioned seeing Dad at the grocery store, looking older, defeated. Mom had started working part-time at a department store, her first job in 20 years. They were struggling, and part of me felt something that wasn't quite sympathy, but wasn't satisfaction either. "They brought this on themselves," Rachel reminded me when I mentioned it. "They could have been proud of you. They could have celebrated your success. Instead, they tried to steal it." She was right. They'd made their choices based on the belief that I existed to serve their needs, that Vanessa deserved what I'd earned. Now they were living with the consequences of those choices. I didn't wish them ill. I just wished them gone from my life. And finally, blessedly, they were. The housewarming party I threw 6 weeks after the trial was everything the first one should have been. 40 people filled my home, co-workers, friends, supportive relatives, even Judge Hayes's clerk who'd become a friend. The house thrummed with laughter and life. "To Tonia's castle," Marcus raised his beer. "May it stand strong against all invaders, especially those sharing DNA." Everyone laughed and toasted. I stood in my kitchen, watching my chosen family fill the space with joy, and felt something release in my chest. A knot I'd carried for so long, I'd forgotten it wasn't supposed to be there. Janet pulled me aside. "You know, I've been thinking about starting a scholarship fund for kids aging out of foster care or toxic families, kids who have to make it on their own. Would you be interested in helping?" I didn't just win a house, I won my life back, I told her, feeling the truth of it in my bones. Yes, absolutely yes. The party went late, but I didn't care about the next morning's shift. I'd already cut back to one job. For the first time in 13 years, I could afford to be tired for a happy reason. After everyone left, I stood in my backyard under the oak tree. The stars were visible despite the suburban lights, and the air smelled like the barbecue smoke and happiness. This was freedom, not just from my parents' expectations, but from the belief that I had to earn my right to exist. I'd spent 13 years proving I mattered through work and sacrifice. Now I was learning to matter just by being. The house wasn't just shelter anymore. It was proof that sometimes standing up for yourself actually works. Sometimes justice actually comes through. Sometimes you actually get to win. 3 months post-trial, I sat with a therapist for the first time. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand how not to break others the way I'd been broken. You don't hate them, Dr. Martinez observed after a few sessions. No, I understand them actually. They genuinely believe they were right. In their minds, I'm the ungrateful daughter who abandoned family. They can't see past their own narrative. And forgiveness? Forgiveness will come when they acknowledge the harm, I said. But I'm not holding my breath. I'm not waiting for them anymore. The therapy helped me see patterns I'd been blind to, how I'd overfunctioned at work, taking on everyone's extra shifts, how I'd struggled to accept help even from genuine friends, how I'd hoarded money not just for a house, but as proof of my worth. You were keeping receipts on your life, Dr. Martinez said, literally and figuratively. She was right. Every saved receipt was a small rebellion, a tiny declaration that I existed, that my contributions mattered. The lawsuit had forced everything into the light, and in a strange way, I was grateful for that. I started making different choices. I accepted Rachel's help with groceries without keeping a mental tally. I let Marcus pay for lunch without calculating what I owed. I learned that relationships didn't have to be transactions, that love didn't require documentation. The anger faded into something more like pity. My parents had 2 daughters and had lost both, one to entitlement, one to self-preservation. They'd probably never understand what they'd done wrong, would go to their graves believing I was the villain in their story. But I wasn't living in their story anymore. I was writing my own. 6 months after the trial, I converted the spare bedroom into an office. Not for more work, but for the scholarship fund Janet and I had started. The Sinclair Foundation. Yes, I kept the name, reclaiming it for something good. The first recipient was Maria, 18 years old, aged out of foster care, working 2 jobs while attending community college. Sitting across from her, reviewing her application, I saw myself. The exhaustion, the determination, the desperate need to matter. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, suspicious. Life had taught her that help always had strings. "Because someone should have helped me. Because you shouldn't have to work yourself to death to prove you deserve to exist." This house became more than shelter. It became my sanctuary, and now a launching pad for others. The foundation meetings happened at my dining room table. The backyard hosted fundraisers. The girl who'd been invisible was now making sure others were seen. My office wall held 2 things: my house deed and a photo from the fundraiser. 40 people raising glasses in my backyard. Not a blood relative in sight, but family nonetheless. In the corner of the photo, barely visible, was the filing cabinet that still held 13 years of receipts. I didn't need them anymore, but I kept them, reminders of where I'd been and why I'd never go back. The morning sun streamed through the window I'd earned, onto the desk I'd bought, in the house I'd fought for. Outside, the oak tree was growing new leaves. Inside, I was growing too, finally, at my own pace and in my own direction. This wasn't the life my parents had planned for me. It was so much better. A year after the trial, I stood in my backyard with an architect, discussing the addition I was planning. A second story with 2 more bedrooms and a proper office for the foundation. The house that had been adequate was becoming something more. Big expansion for one person, the architect noted. I'm planning ahead. Maybe a family someday. The kind you choose and build, not the kind you're stuck with. Rachel had already moved out, found her own place with her new fiancé. But Sunday dinners continued, the table getting bigger as more people joined our chosen family. Some were scholarship recipients who'd become friends. Others were people who'd reached out after hearing my story, finding courage to set their own boundaries. Vanessa had tried to contact me once, through a new Facebook account. Can we talk? Things are bad here. I didn't respond, but I didn't block her either. The door wasn't open, but maybe someday, if she ever took responsibility, it could be. My parents hadn't tried at all. Their silence was its own kind of communication, the final tantrum of people who'd never learned that love wasn't ownership. My door opens for love, not obligation, I told Dr. Martinez in what would be our last session. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even sad. I'm just free. The foundation had helped 12 kids so far. Each one reminded me that my struggle had purpose beyond my own survival. The girl who'd been told she was selfish for keeping her own house was now giving more than her parents ever had. The architect finished his measurements. This is going to be beautiful when it's done. I looked at my house, my life, my future stretching ahead without the weight of unearned guilt. It already is. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been told you're selfish for protecting what you've earned, remember, setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. Please subscribe if this resonated with you, and share your own boundary-setting victories in the comments below. What would you have done in my situation? Your stories inspire others to stand strong. Until next time, remember, you don't owe anyone the life you built yourself.